Hello, and this video is about the history of the Old Testament. Now, it is important to understand the history for the kingdom of God, to understand that kingdom of God and our study, and why the Jewish expectation is that the Messiah will be a military type king that will go forth and conquer Rome. By the way, that's my dog Pearl in the background. Let me go ahead and get started on this and share the screen, and hopefully, this will give you some understanding. I am going to work on this well, quite quickly. This is quite in a simple fashion. Okay, so this is basically the Old Testament timeline. Here you're starting in Genesis on this side here, and you move. Genesis is the story of the beginning. It's really about a family. It is about the family of Abraham. By the time you get to Exodus, the first chapter of Exodus tells us that the Hebrews, the children of Abraham, have become so great that they are it has been 400 years and they are a threat to Pharaoh. They are in Egypt. They had left the land of Israel. It wasn't called really Israel yet. They had left that land in order to go to Egypt to avoid starving in a famine. Sorry, my dog just jumps up on me there. Uh, it is in Exodus that we have the Ten Commandments, we have the plagues that brought the people out of slavery in Egypt. And this is a type of deliverance that we experience because we are taken out of slavery to sin and Satan and brought um, into relationship with God. So that is Exodus. We move into Judges and Joshua, where the people go into the land of Israel. And then, very disturbing thing in First Samuel chapter 8. I would encourage you to read that. What happens there to me is one of the saddest chapters in the Bible, one of them, and it is they reject God as king and they want a king like everybody else. So God gives them that king, and this moves into the crown period. Saul becomes the first king over Israel. David is next, and he is said to have a heart after God. His son is Solomon. David is promised to be on the throne for for forever. His lineage is promised to be on the throne forever, and Jesus does come from the lineage of David. So David has Solomon, and then Solomon has a problem. When Solomon passes away, his son takes over Israel, but also Jeroboam takes 10 of the tribes. There are 12 tribes that comes from the family of Abraham. And Jeroboam takes 10 of them to the north. And those 10 tribes worship false gods, and they are not subject to God. They go after false gods. Like I said, there's 19 kings in all in this northern tribe. What's very important about this is called Israel. They take the name of Israel. The two southern tribes that Rehoboam, son of Solomon, maintains are called Judah. So in Jeremiah 33:7, it talks about bringing Israel and Judah back from captivity. And what does that mean? That means both of these kingdoms to come back from captivity and to come together. In the south, there are 19 kings as well. They reign for longer periods of time. Some are good, some are bad, some worship God, the creator God. Others worship their own man-made gods. So what happens then is Israel in 722 BC is taken captive by the Assyrians. They are taken captive and they assimilate with the Assyrians. So they intermarry there, and they are not pure Jews any longer. They are never really heard of again as a pure people. There is speculation that they are actually the Samaritans in the time of Jesus, but that happens in 722 BC. On the southern kingdom, they serve God and their own gods, and in 586, the Babylonians come and they take them captive. Now, the Assyrian Empire is one of the first great empires. They were taken over by the Babylonians. The Babylonian Empire is one of the second. It is the second great empire. So they take Israel into captivity. Israel is not at home. They go to Babylon. There is nobody in Israel. It has been destroyed. Now down here, you'll see that these are the prophets. They kind of line up a little bit with the when of when these prophets were speaking. Isaiah was an early prophet, spoke both to the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom prior to the north going into captivity. And here you'll see Jeremiah. Now, Jeremiah speaks as they're being taken into captivity. He speaks in the captivity a little bit. Daniel is not in Israel when he writes. Daniel is in Babylon, and it doesn't really experience Israel at all. Ezekiel, the same thing. They write from captivity. So they're not in Israel when they're writing. Now, just knowing that is important when you're reading any of these prophets, that you know when they were speaking and what's going on. So if you see Jeremiah speaking, you know that part of it he's at home, part of it he's in captivity. Daniel, he's in captivity. So that's important. Now, what happens is God brings them back. And that was prophesied in Daniel, that they would return. They return, and they still don't have it totally together. You could read about the history of the return in Nehemiah and Ezra. They talk about asking the Cyrus, the Persian king, if they could go home. So what happens to Babylon? It also falls, and Persia becomes the ruling empire, and Persia allows Israel to go back home. But they're not completely free. They have to answer to Persia. They have to pay tribute to Persia. All right, but they go back home. These three minor prophets speak during the return. So they're back in Israel, and these three prophets are speaking during the time that they are back. Now, with just that information, you should be able to understand a great deal about the Old Testament. In 400 BC, it goes silent. There are no more prophets. No one is speaking. It is called the silent period. It is 400 years before the birth of Jesus, and nothing is happening. It is silent. Well, nothing is happening. That's a tricky phrase. So Alexander the Great comes in like 332 BC, and he conquers everybody then. And Alexander the Great's empire is huge. His theory is that he will make the people Greek. And that way they really won't rise up against the Greeks because they'll be Greek. So the whole world starts speaking Greek. That is why the New Testament, when it is written 300 years later, well, actually about 400 years later, it is written in Greek. They are no longer speaking Hebrew. They were taught to speak Greek. Rome comes along in about 62 BC, and now Rome conquers everybody. And you know this from history in school. The Roman Empire is vast, and Rome is over Israel. Now, Israel still has what they call a king, but he's just a puppet. Herod, and by the way, there are four different Herods, but Herod the Great is a puppet to Caesar and to Caesar Augustus, actually. And then you have the birth of Jesus, and that begins in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So that right there should help you a great deal in your understanding of the Old Testament. And you could see why they are expecting a warrior king. They're expecting a king like David. David was a conqueror, he was a conquering hero. He destroyed many people that were against Israel, took over many lands. So when they say that the Messiah will come on the throne of David, they are expecting a very similar king. So they are looking for a king that will destroy Rome and set them free so that they can be their own nation, and be great and conquerors in the world. Now, Jesus comes and actually does that, but he conquers something much greater than a fleshly kingdom. He conquers the spiritual kingdom. And that is what the kingdom of God in the New Testament is all about. And we're going to keep talking about that, so stay tuned.